Hello, wonderful Igniting Hope family. So excited to be here with you today. My name is Melinda, and I am the operations director at Igniting Hope Ministries, and I lead the Backlund Leadership Academy. So if you can see me, I would love if you could just go ahead and put your name in the chat. We are going to have a good time today. The topic of today is Dare to Dream Again. And I love the topic of dreaming. At Igniting Hope, we've actually been talking a lot about the power of our dreams and stepping into the things that God has called us to do. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. And so if you are with me, just go ahead and comment. I would love to hear from you. And I wanted to start by just letting you all know that if you weren't aware, we actually have a leadership academy at Igniting Hope. So Steve Backlund is leading the Backlund Leadership Academy, and we just graduated our first group of students. So we had around 38 students graduate from this Leadership Academy, and part of the requirement for the Leadership Academy was completing a dream project. And this is so incredible because several of our students had never published a book before or started a podcast. And so basically each student was empowered to choose a dream project of their own. And each of the students went ahead and created something. And so we had several of our students author and complete books for the first time. They literally are stepping into their dreams. It is truly remarkable. And so if you want more information on that, you can go to the ignitinghopeacademy.com and just find out. We actually start our second class in September. And our year one students had such an incredible year. We actually decided to add on to the program. So now we have a second year of the Backlund Leadership Academy. And so we actually offer a 2-year program. And so if you're interested in finding out more about that, and maybe you just want to come around people who are stepping into their dreams, maybe you have things on your heart to do. Projects that you want to get done. Maybe you have a dream of writing a book. Maybe you want to start a business. Maybe you've always thought about doing a podcast or starting a YouTube series, but you don't know how, and you just want to come around a community of like-minded believers who are stepping into their dreams. This is a great place to do that. And you get trained up by Steve. So our Leadership Academy, it's really incredible. We put people in smaller groups, and so you get a really close group of community, and you get to be mentored by Steve Backlund. And we have Wendy Backlund is a part of the second year program, and of course the incredible Connie Jones. And so if you're interested in that and that sparks something in you, just go ahead and reach out to us. And even if you don't feel led to officially apply, if you want to reach out and chat to me, we can have that conversation. But like I said, we had our students just complete these dream projects. And it's so interesting because honestly, I don't know if when I came under Steve and Wendy Backlund's ministry, I had all of these dreams to do different things, but I honestly felt so unqualified. I never thought that I would write a book, let alone 2 books. I just authored my second book. I just published a book, and I really never thought I could do it. And it wasn't a false humility issue. It was actually a value issue that I had with myself. It was a belief issue. And so I just had this subconscious belief system that I was unworthy and that I couldn't do it. And so I came around Steve and Wendy, and they have empowered me in such a way and believed in me. And that's what they do. They really believe in people. They empower people. So that's what the Leadership Academy is all about. So I have to say, being around Steve and Wendy does something to you. So I just authored my second book, and I'm going to show it to you all because I'm so excited about it. This is the author copy. That's why there's that really awkward line that's there. But it's Dare to Dream Again. It's all about stepping into your dreams and doing the things that maybe are on your heart to do. So I'm going to do a little plug for myself there. And I'm actually going to share a few things from my book today, because this topic is near and dear to my heart. Because I really believe, so I actually had a significant dream in the night where I was holding these 14 gold coins, and I may have shared this on my last YouTube live, but I'm going to share it again. And I knew that each of the gold coins was incredibly valuable. My husband was with me in the dream, and I showed him the gold coins, and he said, Melinda, the coins, they represent our dreams. They represent our inheritance. They represent what we're called to do. And so I remember in the dream, though, there was a woman, and she was chasing me, and she was actually a spirit of intimidation, and she was trying to intimidate me out of what I was called to do. And I woke up from that dream, and I knew that I had something so valuable to offer. And I'm hearing that over you, that what you have, the dreams that are on your heart to accomplish, the things that you want to do are so incredibly valuable. But I was actually burying my talents largely because I was feeling intimidated. I was feeling like unworthy, ultimately, is what it came down to. So the subtitle of my book is Break Free from Fear, Intimidation, Unworthiness, and Step into Your God-Sized Dreams. So after that dream, it was a really significant turning point for me because I felt not condemned at all, but I felt the love of the Father inviting me on a journey to step into what He'd called me to do. Because those coins, those gold coins represented the talents in Matthew 25. So if you look up actually in the NIV version, that parable, He actually refers to them as gold coins. And each of us has talents. We have things inside of us that the Lord wants to birth through us that we're called to do. And Steve Backlund said this to me one time, and you may have heard him say this, but he said to me, Melinda, nobody can say it like you. And I believe that about every single person, that nobody can say it like you. Nobody can do it like you. There's things that you are specifically anointed to do. There are people that you are called to reach that nobody else can reach. And so that's what this book is about. And that's really what the Leadership Academy is about. It's about stepping into what you are called to do. And maybe you've already done those things, or maybe you just want to come around a community and upgrade your leadership. There is opportunities for everyone, no matter where you're at, no matter what season you're in. If you feel led to apply to that Leadership Academy, you can go to the Igniting Hope Academy. But I want to talk today. I love the story of David and how David, he was a shepherd. He'd been anointed as the king of Israel. We all know this story. He'd been anointed as the king of Israel. And then he finds himself in this season where he's actually living in complete opposite of his dreams, and there is a moment where his father basically sends him out to go on a food delivery assignment. His father sends him out to go basically bring his brother some food while his brothers are on the battlefield. And I love that his father didn't even quite see his destiny on him. He wasn't even in the lineup of his brothers when they lined up who could potentially be king. And so David goes out. He goes out and he sees this giant Goliath taunting the army of Israel. And it's so interesting because David was just stewarding what his father had asked him to do that day. He wasn't doing anything super awesome. He was just faithfully stewarding what God had asked him to do. David was on a food delivery assignment. I'm going to go bring this food over to my brothers. And he arrives, and that moment was a significant turning point in his destiny. David was seen by the king. He defeated the giant Goliath, and it actually saved a whole people group as a result. But that moment was a significant turning point in David's life. But I love that he was just stewarding faithfully what God had asked him to do. He was just stewarding the thing that his father had asked him to do. He had no idea that one assignment was actually setting him up to reign and step into his prophetic destiny. He had no idea that his small task of bringing food, just the simple act of bringing food over to his brothers, was actually going to lead to him defeating a giant and getting freedom for a whole army. And I believe that as we're faithful with these small tasks, that God is actually setting us up for those big moments, those giant slaying moments. And so the story of David, it is one of my favorites. And, you might even feel like you're in a season where maybe what you're doing isn't significant, or maybe what you're doing isn't what you want to do. You're not where you thought you would be, or, you're in a season where maybe you're feeling like, okay, I'm just faithfully stewarding what God has called me to do. And I just want to speak over you that God's actually setting you up for breakthrough. He's actually using that moment to position you, to put you in front of kings. And there are going to be little moments just of stewarding the little things well, just like David did. He was tending to the sheep. And the cool thing about David is he had all these private victories that nobody saw. It says in the Bible that he defeated the lion and the bear, that he had already had these private victories nobody knew about. So even in that season where he was faithfully stewarding, he had these private victories that were setting him up. And I'm hearing that over you, that even the private victories you've won, maybe, we don't often find ourselves in an actual war today, but maybe you've had a war in your home. Maybe there have been things you're fighting at home. Maybe there's battles that you've been in, but God's actually using those things to get you into your destiny. He's actually setting you up. And those moments they're not defining who you are, and they're not defining where you're going, but they're actually preparation. And so everything in David's life was preparation in order to get him to rule and reign as the king. And we can look at other great leaders in the Bible, like even the life of Joseph. I also love the story of Joseph, how Joseph was sold into prison by his brothers. Now, granted, that may have been God would have been able to get Joseph into that role without having to go through the prison, but Joseph found himself in a prison. And it's so interesting because all of that time in the prison, the Bible says in Psalm 105 that the word of the Lord tested Joseph's character. So all of that prison season, all of that time was actually used as preparation. God used it for good. God used it to bring him into his prophetic destiny. And so all those moments, all those things that maybe you're going through, maybe you have some things that are really challenging in your life right now, and forget about dreaming. I always like to say, it's an interesting topic, dreams, because I always like to say I was in survival mode for most of my life. Forget about dreaming. It was like hard enough for me just to get through the day. Like I was more concerned about what is my family going to eat for dinner. Forget about dreaming. That topic actually wasn't even on my heart at all. But when I came up to ministry school, God started speaking to me about dreaming again and about the season of preparation. And I now know that even all those difficult moments I worked through and that I walked through were actually preparation to get me where God has me today. I never imagined I'd work for Steve and Wendy. I never imagined I'd come up to Redding, California and do the things that I've done. I never imagined I would write a second book. But God was preparing me, and all of those little moments that nobody saw, like David, when he was bringing food to his brothers, when he was serving faithfully, just doing those little acts, those little things that nobody else was seeing, that, those were actually setting him up to inherit the promises and to step into his destiny to rule and reign. And same with Joseph. Joseph was being set up for his prophetic destiny, and it may have not felt that way. I mean, if you're like me, I felt like Joseph, like I'm in a prison season. It felt like everything is going the opposite of what I felt like God has said over my life. And if you're watching this, I'm sure you've had seasons that are more challenging that you've been through before. But I look back now and go, gosh, God was actually using those seasons to prepare me. He doesn't send evil to us. I don't believe the Lord sends evil, but he does. It says in Romans, he uses everything for good. And he uses those moments to prepare us. And I love this scripture in 2 Chronicles 15:7. It says, but as for you, be strong and do not give up, for your work will be rewarded. And I'm just hearing that over you, that your work is being rewarded. And all of those small moments that you have stewarded are actually leading to a big breakthrough, and that God is preparing you. We see preparation seasons all throughout the Bible. The life of Esther. If you look at Esther, she was being prepared to stand in front of a king, and her obedience actually set a whole people group free. It set the whole Jewish people group free. And so your obedience, just even in the small moments and the way you're stewarding your family, the way you're stewarding your relationships and the things that you're doing now, those are actually defining moments in your life that are setting you up to step into your dreams, the things that you're called to do. Because there is gold inside of you. Like I said at the beginning, that dream I had where I was holding those gold coins, I knew it was the Lord saying that I had something significant to offer, and you have something significant to offer too, something that nobody else has. And so, this is fun talking about this. So I want to give you, as we're talking about this, I'm gonna share 3 or 5 keys that that have really helped me step into my dreams. And so whether you feel like you're in survival mode or whether you feel like you're in a place where, yeah, actually I'm ready to start doing things. I'm ready. I want to start preparing. At least for me, the first key for me was even just the thought of writing a book. I had to actually stop making excuses. I had every excuse for why I couldn't write a book. And this is me personally. I had the excuse of, I've never written a book before. I don't know how to write a book. I don't have a lot of time. I don't know where to start. I've never done this before. And so I pretty much had every excuse in the world as to why I couldn't do what I was called to do. But ultimately it came down to this. I really had to face my excuses in the face and say, you know what? I'm making excuses for why I can't step into what I'm called to do. And so actually, a huge breakthrough in that was what Steve Backlund taught me about intentionality. He said, Melinda, if you do something every day, if you're intentional every day, what you do every day is going to produce fruit. And so I thought, okay, I can write every day. I can take 10 minutes and write every day. And so my next point, key number 2, is, so the first one is just overcoming excuses that we have. And the second one is intentionality, action, and consistency. So as I started stepping into the things that God had called me to do, um, I've learned that nothing happens when we sit still. I mean, that book wasn't going to write itself. I had prophetic words about writing a book, and so I had to actually start writing in order to step into what God had called me to do. And I have found huge breakthrough in consistency. I used to wait to feel anointed to start writing, like, oh, I don't feel anointed, or oh, I don't feel like doing it today. I literally had every excuse for why I couldn't do it. But I've actually found that God has shown up in our yes. Like, He shows up when we actually sit down to do what He's called us to do. So I just started writing. And I would just say to the Lord, like, okay, this might not be, I might not feel anointed, but I'm anointed whether I feel anointed or not. I'm just going to start writing. And I have had a huge breakthrough in just consistency of sitting down to write every day. And even after I just finished my second book and I just published that. I still sit down and write something every day just because, honestly, it helps me process. And also it helps me be consistent in what God has called me to do. And so just a huge key is consistency. And then the third key is to make clear goals. And I love this story of, I think I shared this the last time, but I'm going to share it again because it's so good. Jamie Kern Lima. So she's the creator of It Cosmetics, and she had this dream to create this makeup line for women of all skin types with all skin issues. She had a personal skin issue, and so she really wanted to develop something that worked for real women. And so she had this goal in mind. And so what she did was she had to figure out how all the steps to do it. She was not a scientist. She didn't have a background in creating makeup. She had no background in the beauty industry. And all the experts told her all the reasons why it wouldn't work. But she made clear goals for herself. And she started taking steps forward into that goal. So she started taking action steps. She started calling people. She was able to find some funding to start having the makeup made. And she actually developed this product. And not only did she develop a product, but she developed a product which the experts told her would never work. They told her, nobody will buy makeup from women who look like you. And so she got rejected multiple times, was told her idea would never work. But of course, she finally got a breakthrough years later after developing this makeup line. And QVC actually hosted her, and her makeup completely sold out. And I love this story because she didn't quit. She had clear goals in mind. She stayed consistent, and she took action steps forward, and she kept the vision in front of her, which is my next point, is keeping the vision in front of you, because our dreams aren't just for ourselves or for other people. And so her makeup line actually impacted so many women because she created it for normal looking women. So she doesn't use models. She uses regular people to feature her makeup because she really wanted to make a point in the beauty industry and change the way the industry was even looked at by keeping that vision in front of her. Like, no, I want this to be for all women. And so that is the story of It Cosmetics. And it is an incredible story. If you you can look her story up on YouTube. She's really, really incredible. And then the last key I will tell you is surround yourself with encouraging people. And so my husband's actually launching his company right now. And one of the things that we have learned is that, of course, we love all people, but there were also a lot of people who wanted to tell us why our idea wouldn't work. And there were a lot of people who wanted to tell us we should quit. And while they're, good-hearted people, well-meaning, I will say a really huge key is surrounding yourself with people who will support you in your dream and who will champion you and who will see the gold in you. And even if that's just one person, it can be really helpful to have people in your life that are supporting you and that are calling the gold out in you. And so we had a couple people tell us this idea will never work. It's not a good idea. And we took advice from people, but we also had to decide what we were going to believe. And so even as you're stepping into your dream, being cautious of who you're sharing that with and letting people into your life who are actually going to speak life over that dream and who are going to believe in you is another Huge, huge key. Okay. So I can repeat those if it would be helpful. So first key for myself was just to stop making excuses about what I wanted to do. I think a huge key for me was to say, okay, Lord, you've asked me to do this. I'm going to take step forward into doing that. And second key, intentionality, action, and consistency. So if you feel called to write a book, take action steps every day and just ask yourself, what are things I can do every day? And before you know it, if you wrote a page every day, before you know it, at the end of 200 days, you'd have a complete book written in front of you. And then the third step, making clear goals and having a vision for your dream is the fourth one. And then the fifth key or step is surrounding yourself with encouraging people. And so I pray that this is a blessing to you today. But I am hearing that your small victories, the things that you have been working on, the things that you have been stewarding are leading you into your destiny, that you're stewarding what God has asked you to do. And as you take steps forward, you're going to see, just like David, as he took steps forward to lead the children of Israel out to battle, how he went out to face Goliath and he defeated a whole army, that those steps are actually taking territory for the kingdom of God. So I bless you today. I bless your dreams that are on your heart. I bless the fulfillment of the dreams. And like I said before, we are taking applications at Igniting Hope for the Backlund Leadership Academy. And so if you feel led to apply to a 9-month program with Steve Backlund, you will be meeting with him in a small group setting, as well as Connie Jones and some of our other leaders. And so if you feel led to apply to that, and there's dreams on your heart to accomplish, like I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, several of our students have just completed a dream project for the first time. And in fact, Dana Macarius is in the chat, and she is one of our incredible students. And Dana completed a book, and we have several other students we had almost 40 students graduate. And each of those students completed an individual dream project. So many of them wrote a book for the first time. We had people start a podcast for the first time, a YouTube channel, and several other things. So if you're looking for community to come alongside you to step into the things that you know the Lord is calling you into, this might be a good place. If you feel like it's your season to do that, you can find out more at ignitinghopeacademy.com. I pray this blesses you, and we will see you next time. Bye, Igniting Hope family. We'll see you soon.